Hi, folks. Welcome to the first episode of Something More Than Gibberish for 2025. Today, a featured guest is Hayley Ricketson. She's from my local city in Melbourne. I was fortunate to meet her when she was being featured at a local venue. And I was pretty impressed with her work when I invited her to join this show. So for the next 90 to 100 minutes, folks, trust me, you will be entertained by this lady. Could you tell me if the audio is coming through okay? Hi, Tom. Tom, could you confirm if the audio is coming through clearly? Because I've had some audio issues lately. Hi, Tom. Is the audio good, mate? Beautiful, thank you, because I've had some issues previously. So with this show, while I'm waiting for Hayley to come into the room, I invite selected guests to feature on the show, and the whole 90 to 100 minutes is a platform where the selected artists can showcase their journey in writing, their work, and what's coming up in their near future. As I was saying with Hayley, I was fortunate to meet her at a event locally where she was featured, and I had not come across her work previous to that, and I was impressed for the 40 minutes or hour that she was featured on that set. I was just totally engrossed all the way. I said it is our first show for the year, 2025, due to holidays and so forth. I have changed the time to 7 p.m. EST, which is 11 a.m. my time on Saturday. And just wait for Hayley to turn up and bring her up in the room. And she's just turned up in the room. So Hayley, if you want to put in a request, I'll bring you up. And ladies and gentlemen, you really are going to be entertained by this lady. She's got a background in theatre. She writes. Her delivery of her work is just second to none. Involved within the slam circuit within in Melbourne here as well. Performed in UK. So Hayley, if you want to put in a request to come in, my friend, I can bring you up. Just hit that plus sign and we can. I hope I don't have any audio issues. Fingers crossed. Silent prayer. Well, I can see Hayley in the room, but she's dropped out again, saying that she's not in the room. Hayley, I saw you came into the room, but right now I can only see Tom, some throwaway poetry, and it's Jalen 187 in the room. So while I'm waiting for Hayley to come in, Hayley writes on a varied range of topics. She writes humorous pieces, she writes on political issues, and sometimes they can express her passion and let's even say anger towards injustices within the community, within the society we live in. So said it's quite a range. She's been a finalist in London and in Melbourne within the slam circuit. And here in Melbourne, we got a group, which I have not attended any of their events actually, which I'd like to. Slamalamadingdong, and she's part of that team here in Melbourne. She staged theatre plays in London and in Melbourne, and I think she's waiting on opportunities to get back into theatre because I think that's a bit of a passion there. So we're all set to go except the guest of honour. Hi, Hayley. I can now see you in the room. Do you want to put in a request to hit the plus sign to come in, and I'll bring you up? Apologise for the technical difficulties, folks. Now, I accepted your invitation. What's happening? Hello.
Hello. I'm so sorry. I've got to try and figure out how I can do this or where I can set something up because it's cutting my head off. And
Look, I'm glad you could join after all the
sorry.
technical
Well,
difficulty.
I was hoping I could do it on my laptop, but that doesn't seem to have any option
Yes.
for adding.
Instagram has a different version for laptops and different versions for mobile devices,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Wow. Can you tell I've not done Instagram Live before?
Well, it is a first, and so about the show, Hayley, the next 90 minutes or so, you've got an open platform to showcase your journey in your writing, in your performances, in your theatre. Recite your work, expound on them, what you got coming up, what are your aspirations. This is all about showcasing Hayley Ricketson to the world. It's not about me. I'm just a facilitator that provides a platform for selected guests to do that. So I was saying to the guests before, while waiting for you to get on, I had not come across your work previous to the time, and I met you mid to late last year when you were being featured, and I was amazed. I was just engrossed for that whole 40 minutes to the hour that you performed. I was taken up, and we spoke, and here we are, nearly 4 or 5 months later. It's
We got
happening. Yeah,
eventually.
yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for being for agreeing to feature on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Look, it's you honour the platform by being here. I can see a lot of familiar faces from like Tabani's just joined and Wab Union and all the local
Uh,
band of brothers and sisters are all joining. So that shows a lot on how much you are accepted and respected within the poetry community in Melbourne.
it's very humbling, really. It's a very
The
lovely community here.
So tell us, how did it all start? What made Hayley Ricketson put pen to paper? What was the driver there?
Uh, what a question. I mean, as a kid, I always loved storytelling and writing and um, yeah, kind of consuming stories, telling stories, writing stories, creating stories, and it always blended with performance for me. So when I was younger, just in general, like a teenager and everything, I kind of had high hopes of being an actress and, wanted to perform more than I wanted to right, I would say. But yeah, so when I finished high school, I went and did a performing arts degree and realized quite quickly that I'm far too introverted to be an actor. I find it mortifying having to. I mean, I think it's one of those funny things where once I'm on a stage, I'm fine. And I think it's almost that I imagine other introverted people would feel similarly. It's like you're given permission on a stage to be extroverted, but in other spaces, you have to kind of give yourself that permission. And that's a entirely different kettle of fish for me. But I think along the way, writing just was always there. It was always something I enjoyed. And the performing arts degree wasn't a straight sort of acting degree or anything like that. So there was a lot of looking at all the different aspects of theatre, writing and directing and stage management, all those bits and pieces, and then the kind of critical academic side of it, looking at dramatic theory. And I think I just fell in love with all of that as a whole. So writing kind of stuck around as a sort of academic discipline as well as a creative discipline. And I didn't really know once I finished my degree what I wanted to do, and just did bits and pieces in the theatre world, and eventually came to playwriting and went, I think this is my greatest strength and this is what I love. And so I pursued that, ended up going to London to do a master's effectively in playwriting. And that's where I discovered spoken word. I didn't really know it was a thing before before London. I was clearly a bit sheltered. And so once I dipped my toe in that, I loved it, because then you could write, obviously, like it was all about writing and expressing yourself, but I got to kind of perform again as well, which I'd been missing a bit.
It seems like all the pieces of the puzzle came together, right? So by going to the UK, you were involved in some theatre. Was that in playwriting or actually on stage?
Playwriting, yeah, yeah, I like being on a stage, but I'm not an actor. It's not something I need to pursue. I don't think.
But yeah, well, that in itself is quite a talent, right? Writing playwriting is not easy. It's so much. We see the play, we see the actors and the actresses, but we don't see everything that goes on behind, from the
Yeah.
stage productions to the writers, to the story, to making it flow within a certain envelope of time and so forth. So
Mm.
that's an absolute credit to you as well. Um,
Yeah, thank you.
so you wrote playwrights in London and in Melbourne as well.
Yes, I sort of had a funny journey with it. I mean, I love playwriting. It is, I mean, it's not simple
Mm,
necessarily, but I think when I did honors here, I mean, it's weird to kind of have such a creative journey intertwined with academia, but I think it's what really made me fall in love with theatre, because there's been just so many people who have used theatre as a way to just interrogate self-expression and kind of interrogate story, and really just, for lack of a better phrase, fuck around with things like they and I love movies, I love TV, I love cinema, but whenever I've tried to write in that discipline, I find it much more limiting. And I think in playwriting you have, and it's no shade on that, like obviously that's not easy and it's still a fantastic medium. But in theatre, there's a bit more, I find, opportunity to really explore storytelling. And it's live performance. Like it's just
mm,
exciting, and it's um, a bit less. I mean, it can be very curated, but it's less curated than cinema.
mm.
Um, but I wrote, so when I did honors, it was kind of half academic and half creative. So it was sort of, I both wrote a sort of thesis, and then I wrote well, it wasn't a play. It ended, but it was the first kind of stage production thing I wrote, and it was a hip hop musical of all things. And I think that just that's probably what made me realize, like, oh, okay, I really like writing, and I really like writing with, for lack of a better word, rhythm in mind, like playing with language and like using it in different ways. So then I think after that, I steered away from that, and I ended up writing a series of monologues that were paired with food, and took that to the Adelaide Fringe Festival. Just because, that's just sort of what happened. And then after that, I went to London and really got stuck into like playwriting, like studying playwriting as a craft, and then finding the stories I wanted to write, I guess.
Adelaide Fringe Festival is an awesome event, isn't it?
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. I was very much out of my depth at the time, but it's such a fun festival.
Yeah. What must have been an amazing feeling with your very first playwright witnessing that happen on stage in 3D. That must have been an amazing feeling.
Yeah. The hip hop musical was because we kind of did a performance of it, but it wasn't a proper one. It was sort of this thrown together thing, and that was a very it's a big learning curve, really. And then so with Season to Taste, which is the series of monologues that I took to Adelaide Fringe, that was when I still kind of thought, oh, maybe I still want to be on stage, maybe I still want to act. So I performed some of the monologues, and then I had two other women with me doing the other monologues. And it's interesting. It's great fun acting in that respect, and being a part of it constantly, like seeing it right through and kind of going through the whole journey of it. But after that, I haven't acted in any of my shows after that.
Well, that industry is not easy to break into. So the fact that you got in, that was really good. And you've done a couple of plays, you got that under your belt. Because people have tried to be songwriters for all their lives and not succeeded, right? People have tried to write plays and they don't even get a look in. So the very fact that you broke in, that says a lot to your natural talents in that space, I think.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's all been, so far, it's all been sort of self-produced fringe stuff. It's not, I actually, the tragic part of my story is that when I was leaving London at the end of 2019, I was sort of securing a play of mine to have its first proper 3-week run at a theatre in London, and that was due to happen in April 2020. So I was going over in March to sort of be there for that. I wasn't directing it or anything, but I was going to be there for the production, and that all got cancelled 2 days before I was going to get back on the plane. I was just speaking with my director, and she's like, I think we have to call it now because I don't think you should get on the plane. Yeah. I was like, no, I really want to. And the theatre were great and kind of said, well, put you on later this year. We're going to reschedule everything as soon as COVID blows over. And then COVID didn't blow over. I think later in the year, the UK got their big wave and lockdown, and then Australia stayed shut for a good couple of years, as we well know. So that just sort of disappeared. And then my director, she did what so many artists did during COVID, which is leave the arts. She went and got a job. I forget where she went. She moved to Wales, I think, and got a job elsewhere and just couldn't continue in the arts, which is really sad. So that play just never got put on in the end.
Yeah. That was one of the sad side effects that wasn't publicly known readily known in the mainstream. I remember speaking to, like, as you know, Melbourne's got a great stand-up comedy scene, and I remember speaking to some stand-up comedians, and because they weren't deemed a real job, they were paid that $1,500 that everybody else got. So these guys, they had literally 12 months of nothing.
Yeah.
Support them.
Yeah. It's terrible. It's really I remember writing some things at the time, just random freelance things, just trying to like, because there was there was barely any industries that were unaffected, but the arts just gets forgotten so quickly, so easily. And so many people work gig to gig, and it's just, I still don't, it hasn't really recovered here since then. I think that's why, like, I love Australia, I love Melbourne, but London just had, I wanted to go there for playwriting and theatre because they've just got a bigger ecosystem. They have a bigger main stage, which means they have a bigger fringe, and they have a bigger, smaller scene around that, and they have, we have pubs with pokies and they have pubs with theatres above them. It's just, there's just so many different ways you can kind of test your work out, or just get a couple of nights to preview something at a theatre, and we just don't quite have that here that I've seen, to be fair. And since COVID, it's like, it's just, we're still struggling to keep our head above water rather than grow it.
Well, you've got a city in London of 20 million people. Us as a nation, million people, right? So
there's a bit of a difference.
And really, although our population's 27 million, really the arts are only culturally rich in Melbourne. Really, I mean, Sydney has a bit and Brisbane has a bit, but nothing in compared to Melbourne. But I got my fingers crossed that you get that your foot in the door back again, whether it be in Melbourne or whether it be in London. Melbourne is starting to get back on our feet. I mean, and strangely, Melbourne was the most rich in the arts, and we had the most lockdowns and restrictions. So it was a no-win situation, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's quite unfortunate, really. And I think, and it's funny too, because we probably have, I mean, I couldn't say for sure, but I think our state government is probably the government most friendly towards the arts, but there's obviously just not much money around in general, so it's hard to.
Yeah, well, you're right. They are very conducive to the arts and very supportive of it, but on a global level, we're trying to, every nation's struggling, right, to get back to that economic sort of stability. I think, correct me, I'm happy to be corrected, but I think in the last 2 years, it's only really Vietnam that's shown a strong economic growth of about 30%. Everybody else has been struggling.
Yeah, that's very true.
Is,
yeah.
And COVID's now getting on a few years, 3 years, 4, and there's, I still get people diagnosed and copping it. So, yeah. Have you been performing much in the open mic scene lately since we met?
I'm pretty terrible at going to open mics regularly. I think because I work full time, and I get, I don't know, I think I want to call it like bureaucratic brain, where it's just, I just struggle to switch to a creative brain and write poetry or write anything creative. And so I get caught up in just working and staying at home or doing other things, but trying to get back, well, the whole new year, new goals, or like just trying to get back stuck into it, and going to open mic nights. In particular, Vibe Unions is my favorite. No shade on the others, but they do a good open mic night.
I am yet to go to join the lads, Jason and Rye, at their new venue.
Neat. Yeah. Week.
Really, I've got to get there. I've hardly been into any myself since the start of this year. It's easy to get in that mouse in the proverbial wheel, right? You just routine and But no, I've got to go and see the lads. And I think the last time I caught up with them was at an event in Kyneton.
Oh yeah, the Simba sessions.
Yeah, that was a really, really
event.
I want to go back there actually. That was amazing, just for one of the normal events. So what do you feel like sharing a piece?
yeah, why not? I could do that. I figured I'd start with the very first poem that I ever performed at an open mic night, or just in general, which was in London. Because, like I said, I had no idea spoken word was really a thing. And a friend of mine who I worked with, he was going to spoken word nights and performing, and so I went with him once, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then after going a few times, sort of thought, oh, I can maybe do this, maybe. And then this poem, which anyone watching who does know me would have heard this quite a few times by now. But yeah, wrote this poem. It's the first spoken word poem I ever wrote, and so it's kind of wild that it still is relevant. I guess like it still speaks the truth about me. I guess it's just based on a bizarre date that I went on in in London. But yeah, it never really had a title, but I guess I call it Sweet. It's the second date. Local pub, large glass of wine, burger with chips and a smile sitting across from me, sourced from Tinder. Eyes taking it in, kind eyes, and then not kind at all. And the conversation is stilted, sort of like hard to start, and I find myself doing all the work. He smiles across from me, almost nervous, and then just not at all as well. I ask him about his day, his work, his family, and he indulges willingly. An open book, not interested in reading another. And he looks at me and says, "You're so sweet." And I smile. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? It's nice. Sweet, I say. Oh, everything's... Oh. But we persevere. We talk about shit that's boring, but then we talk about stuff that's not boring, things that are important to me and seem important to him, things to tie to one another. The personal and the political, the emotional, the world around us, the world inside us, and we wrap ourselves around the conversation like this might hold us together longer than I thought. We're on the same page of the same book now. We're looking at each other differently now, but then the pause comes. And I just know that I will have to address the pause, because all he does is look at me and says, "You're so sweet." To be clear, to be perfectly sparklingly clear, I'm not sweet. Salty, sour, bitter, intense, but not sweet. Do you know how angry I am sometimes at the state of the world, state of myself? Just fucking nothing. I'm not sweet. I'm fucking smart. I wouldn't have read every book in a room, but I've read a fair few, and I think about things in a way that pisses me off sometimes, but mostly it's pretty cool to understand some things and to want to know more. You're so sweet. I am not sweet. I drink coffee and wine, probably too much of both, and I put milk and sugar in that coffee because I'm not sweet enough. I like the tart, sour taste of lemon on my lips. I breathe salt and vinegar, balsamic and white wine, and have too much Vegemite on my toast. I'm not sweet. I'm funny sometimes in a way that's really dry, bone dry, tongue stuck to the roof of your mouth dry. It is not sweet. If sweet means empathy, then I can be empathetic. I call it being human. I can be there for my friends when they need me and when they don't, and I can feel for people who I've never met and want to help them, and sometimes even help them. It's a swelling of collective empathy that I feel like anyone else might feel, and so to reduce that to a bag of sugar and pink fairy floss and Disney movie endings doesn't quite add up. I feel a darkness sometimes that takes up room inside me like a shitty flatmate. So we'll fight like mad and then kind of just depend on one another. And it's sad and it's weird and it's frustrating and it's probably normal, but do you know what it's not? It's not sweet. All of that squeezes into and out of me, I don't think it fits in a pot of honey. I'm calling bullshit. Because it would seem, at the end of the day, at the end of the night, at the end of the glass of wine, I'm not all that. Not all that to you. I'm just a body you hoped would taste as sweet as it looked. I'd apologize if I were sorry. And I'm just not that sweet. Thank you.
Firstly, there is never too much Vegemite. So thick, right? Only an Aussie.
100%.
I just can't take it on so thick, people just cringe. But I love it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
experiment with avocado and Vegemite and all kinds of stuff. And it's a trip.
Perfection.
Yeah.
Perfect. Makes everything better.
Yes. Yes. I love it when I see TikToks and all of people overseas trying out Vegemite and they pull these face and I go, oh, you guys, really?
You'll get used to it. You get used to it.
It grows on you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that piece
Mm.
is so relatable. I think most listeners, I myself have encountered this many times where you go on that date that's just flat and you're going, how do I politely exit this thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you've got nothing in common and there's no
Mm.
conversation. And you think this is at the start if you got no conversation. What's it going to
Yeah.
be in 3 months or 3 years? You know, like,
Yeah. I've been on a lot of first dates. It's almost an art form now. But this was the funny thing with this particular person who I probably would have forgotten by now if I hadn't written a poem based on the date. But we'd had, one date which was pretty good, and then so this was the second one. And when we would get to talking, there would be something to talk about, but he just stopped trying at a certain point, and then you could kind of see like it was all just oh, am I going to get into bed with this person or not, rather than an actual date. So it's like, that's fun.
yeah.
Politely exit.
Yeah. And the other thing that he touched in the poem was in the eyes. I've always found doesn't matter what people say, what they do. When I look in their eyes, I know what's if the transparency there, the open authenticity. Is it there, you know, or is it just a shield and there's the words don't reflect what's going on behind the eyes?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Could definitely see that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
They say the eyes don't lie, right?
Mm.
And the other thing that, and I respect anybody who can memorize their work. I can't even, I've been writing for like, oh God, probably 35 plus years. And I can't even memorize a haiku that I write, let alone a piece. So I really admire people who can recite stuff, right? And that's, I think that whole feature when I saw you in Fitzroy there, it was all, you recited all your pieces, which is great. Compliments to you. Yeah, really brilliant.
Thank you.
Do you, your normal day job, is that related to the arts or is that totally separate?
No, I got a job halfway through 2020, so I was pretty lucky to get it. Like I've had a bunch of different jobs over my life. Like in London, I was working in hospitality and cafes as a cook and stuff. And so when I came back here, I didn't really know what I'd look at for work and how I'd, incorporate creativity. But COVID happened and I ended up getting a job at a state government department, so in the public service and in communications. And I've sort of had a few different roles, moved sort of up and around teams in comms. I worked a lot on like COVID related comms for the department. But now at the moment, I am a senior comms advisor working across the economic growth and jobs portfolio. So yeah, it's like my love language, obviously, economic growth. Horrendous. That's when it's lots of, because it's a ministerial portfolio, it's lots of media releases and speaking notes, and it's just all, jobs and money and business and stuff. So it's not super exciting or fulfilling.
Well, so this show, when I post it on Instagram, I will add you as a collaborator, so you can post it on your own page. And then I download that and I create a YouTube video, which I post under this Something More Than Gibberish. And I also create a podcast which goes on Spotify and so forth, which I'll then send you those links, and you're welcome to share those, use those in any form or manner. What, there's no guarantees, obviously, but you having it on those mediums, you don't know who in what corner of the world might see this show. And I hope that somebody in that theatre space or the performing arts or the visual arts space um, hears your work and your background and your ambitions, and those doors once again open for you, Hayley, because I think I love to see people who work in their passions.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's sort of been ever since, like, I don't know if other creative people online or just in general felt this as well, but when COVID happened for me, it's like I just lost the creative part of my brain. Because I wasn't working initially when COVID first happened, but I just didn't have anything to write about. I just felt like I didn't have anything to say. There were no stories there. And then I got this job, and then I got really caught up, particularly in the second lockdown. That got really intense work-wise and everything. And so I just feel like it's this muscle that I haven't been working properly for a while. So each year, particularly since COVID, kind of the lockdowns ended, I've had this, like, this year, this is the year I'm gonna, write plays again and do this and do that. And it's been hasn't quite happened, but it's also that whole thing. You've got to, look at the things you have done. Like, obviously I got back into spoken word, which has been brilliant and a really wonderful and valuable creative outlet. And being, having Team Slammer and stuff, which I think Antonio and Jason are on the online now, is a journey. It's, been interesting, but it's great. It's great to just have a group of creative people to bounce off, to just talk about poetry, attempt to write poetry together, all that kind of thing. Like, so there's cool stuff happening. I'd really like to also find the place for theatre and playwriting back in my life.
I want to talk to you about the slam side, which you went to in London and also here, and you're in the Slamalamadingdong team as well. But shall we go to another piece and then we'll talk about that, because I really want to know more about that. And I've got to come and see the team there performing. I've never been to one of the Melbourne events, the Slamalamadingdongs, and that's one of my commitments for 2020. And I try and go there and be in the audience and be entertained.
Yeah, for sure. It's been it's not actually been running for a little bit, because the organizer of Slammer has sort of been focusing on us as a team rather than the Slammer events. But I believe she's wanting to start it up again this year. So watch this space.
Well, you'll have to let me know when you guys, even as a team, are performing anywhere. Do let me know.
Yeah.
I'd love to come and support, and it's always nice when you see people that you meet in your day-to-day life, see them performing. That's quite special. I mean, I went to Kyneton because I knew Jace was performing, and then Antonio was performing, and it was awesome. It was just good to get out there, raced over there after work, battle the traffic past Melton area there, and got there, and it was a great night. Really.
It is. Yeah, that's a fantastic night. I really love that combination of music and poetry and the way they set up the room. Yeah, if anyone from Melbourne is watching and hasn't been to Kyneton and Simba Sessions, should definitely check it out.
I bumped into Antonio, must have been last Thursday or the Thursday before, at this event at Black Spark, and I assumed that we should get a group together and head back out there for one of their monthly sessions. It'd be, grab a feed at the Kyneton pub or something and go and
Yeah,
it'd be great.
definitely. I dig it.
So, floor's yours.
This next one is another kind of old, like, been around for quite a while now, but it's great fun. I like doing it because it's fun to do, and it's a bit well, it's slightly more lighthearted than some of my other pieces, but it's also got a bit of a serious or darker undertone because can't seem to avoid that. But it's called A Millennial's Guide to Life. Don't run, walk. Don't walk, Uber. Actually, cycle. Save on those emissions. Don't run, sprint. Get in the fat burning zone. Don't smoke. Smoke weed. Avoid cancer. Cigarettes give you cancer. Sweeteners give you cancer. Too much of a good thing gives you cancer, and cancer gives you cancer. Actually, apparently sweeteners are not that bad, but try to avoid them anyway. Have natural sugar. Just quit sugar. Try stevia. Start simple. Find meaning, find purpose, find a house or a home, maybe even both, and give to the homeless. Wait, no, don't give to the, fuck it, do give to the, maybe talk to the homeless and stop referring to them as a collective instead of individual people. Work out more. Buy some activewear and try CrossFit and yoga and Pilates and get centered. Get healthy, be wild and go plant-based or gluten-free or fructose-free or dairy-free. Remove all potential allergens from your diet and conquer mortality. Also, give yourself a break, indulge and treat yourself. Have that Oreo crusted salted caramel cronut. Have that glass or 5 of wine. You only live once, accept mortality. Get married or don't get married. Go to your friend's wedding. Celebrate everyone's love. Go stag, stay single, but find a partner. Embrace intimacy. Remember that love is in the moments and all the moments connect. Be the first one on the dance floor. Be the last one on the dance floor. Try not to cheat. Try an open relationship. Try anything once just to say you have, and make sure you post about it. Tweeting and gramming on all possible platforms so the stage is all your own, and emotional validation is quantifiable with a simple thumbs up. Practice self-care. Download an app and meditate, or medicate if you need to. Just look after yourself and look nice doing it. This shows you really self-care. Get out there, go traveling, see the world, see as much of it as you possibly can before you die, or it does. Save for a house, invest in property, become a homeowner. It's super simple as long as you already own one. Make room for other people's opinions. Stop shouting, make yourself heard, and listen. Pay attention to the news. Don't listen to everything they say, and remember that you're contributing to a dialogue, not a monologue. Dance more, sing more, especially if you're bad at it. Be kind to yourself, or just be kind. Stop treating everything as opposites on opposing sides instead of neighbors standing side by side. Put your fucking phone down. Try to separate the thoughts so they don't scroll through your head like a news feed. Let the ones that matter plant a seed, and they'll grow in their own time.
That is, again, another so relatable piece, because as you're reciting that, I'm thinking, because the previous generation, the baby boomers, because they were born just after the wars and so forth, right? And recovering after depression. And the big drive was, work hard, get your bricks and mortar, 2 cars in the driveway, 2 kids in the house, and that was it. And you worked your backside off through the industrial era, through the, and the factories were all pumping. That was it. That's so much so that people forgot to live life.
Yeah.
And you become that mouse in that proverbial wheel. You get up, you go to work, you come back, you eat, you sleep, and same thing. Saturdays, cleaning, washing the cars, taking the kids. And there was no time. I don't have any responsibilities. My son's a grown adult. And over Christmas I went to Vietnam, and it was a great reminder for me. Now, a lot of these people in Ho Chi Minh, 9 million people, work in labour-intensive jobs. Still in the evenings, you would see the parents with the kids walking down the city square, throwing paper model planes or whatever, or kicking balls, eating street vendor food, which then in turn supported that life. I don't even have any responsibilities, and I'm that mouse in that wheel that from the time I wake up Monday to Friday till 11, 12 o'clock before I go to bed, I don't seem to
Yeah.
stop. And I've got no kids. I live by myself.
Yeah.
I'm a clean person. I don't have a lot to do. What the hell did I, between work and everything else?
Yeah.
My Saturdays after the show, do my shopping,
Yeah.
do the cleaning, blah, blah, blah. Sunday golf, and then,
Yeah.
I actually, it was a great reminder for me to actually take that time out to breathe, to do your thing, to live. You don't have to go crazy and party all the time, but to do whatever it is, whether it's a walk in the park or whether it's a, you know, hike through the mountains or whatever it is,
Yeah.
taking that time to live, to
Yeah.
enjoy life.
Oh, 100%. I think it's I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was saying something. I feel like we're in pretty similar life positions. Like, we're the same age, and we're both, we live around the corner from each other and known each other for years, and we're both single, and we both work full time, but in jobs that we're probably not in love with or anything. And so we both keep getting this real agitation around just like, what am I doing with my life? Or, how do I fix this? How do I change it? How do I do this? And when you are, you're Monday to Friday, or just whenever you work is just feeling so consuming that, like, your time off becomes, right, I've got to get this done and this done. I've got to enjoy this and I've got to do this. And she was saying something about just feeling quite frustrated about something, and then said something around, I think I just need to be for a while. I think it's okay to be. And it's such a kind of, an interesting concept that you kind of forget about. Like, even if you're not in the best place or where you want to be, that you can kind of give yourself permission to just sit in it, in that respect, like just be with it, rather than go straight to, like, right, I need to get out of this discomfort, or I need to fix this. Like, I get into it a lot with the whole, right, I've got some free time, I should be writing a play, I've got to go, find, and I do want to do those things. I want to find the space for it again. But there is also that we don't give ourselves much time to just be, to not do something. Yeah.
The last 3 months, I've hardly touched my third manuscript for my third book, which is I'm halfway through. I parked it, and it'll happen, right? I'm not going to stress myself about it. And even when I went to Vietnam, I worked right up until Christmas Eve, a full day, celebrated with my sister's family and my son and all that. And then Christmas Day, I actually, because I only had 10 days, I flew out Christmas Day to Ho Chi Minh, and I came back on the 5th, late in the afternoon, because I had work on Monday morning.
Wow.
On the, so,
Yeah.
but, and I'm so glad I did. Just unplug myself from the normal environment, just go to a whole new circuit, and I needed that to remind me of a lot. And you captured all that so well in that poem, like. I really love how you do write on so many genres. There's that humor, there's that social injustice topics, there's that political side. That's brilliant. Shows you how much in touch you are with your environment as well, or your surroundings,
Yeah. Thank you.
and that you're not hesitant to speak forth on it as well. Those are all compliments to you on that. You know, again, and your delivery is amazing. See why you did well in the because you were now. Let's get back to this slam thing because you were
Yeah.
finalist in London and in Melbourne, right?
Yes. In London, I think it's called Genesis Poetry Slam. I don't know if I'm pretty sure it's still called that. But it's the same kind of setup and structure as Slamalamadingdong. So kind of anyone can sign up it's a monthly event, and anyone can sign up for it. The idea is to have 12 poets in round one, that then goes down to 6 poets in round two, and then 3 poets in round three. You get scored by judges in the audience. So yeah, in London, I'd been going to kind of open mic nights, and then heard about Genesis because a woman who was in a play of mine was she was also a spoken word poet, and she told me about Genesis, and I was like, oh no, I couldn't do that. Oh no, that's that. No. And then I think the first time I went, I didn't get past the first round. I didn't bomb necessarily, but I had sort of amped myself up, and then you don't get past the first round. You're like, oh, okay, it's very, very humbling. And yeah, and then I think so the second time I went, I kind of had that mindset of like, I'm not going to get past the first round, and then got to the final round. But the final round, because I didn't think I was going to get there, I had picked this poem that I had written, which was more about Australian politics, really randomly. So it just did not. I mean, I think people appreciated it, but it didn't resonate. It didn't make any sense to the London audience. So I never won over there, but I got to the finals a few times.
Very good. Congratulations. Yeah, I've definitely got to get to an event. I mean, I see a lot of the people who perform there, like Antonio and Lane, Milburn, and all that, and regularly at open mics. And yeah, love to go and see. Lane did really well this year in the finals, right? He went to the Nationals. He won and went to the finals, and so.
Oh yeah, so that's I forget what that's called. That's the other one, the Australian
Slam.
poetry slam.
Yeah.
But yeah, he got to the finals.
Yeah. So yeah. All this talented individuals in my small little circle.
Yeah. There's a few. I don't know. I have to say, because when I went to Slammer for the first time, it was the end of 2022, and I had not done. I think I'd gone to one open mic night in 2022 before that. So I went at the end of 2022, like November. I went to Slammer, and it was like the first time I'd performed in years, really, like properly performed since London, I reckon. And so I was, just to use an Australian idiom, like shitting bricks completely. And then ended up winning that one. Ended up winning that one. And so I kind of set myself the challenge of trying to go regularly for the rest of that season and see how I would do, because that was really like 2022 was that whole coming out of COVID, wanting to sort of get creative and stuff. And then I got moved around a bit at work and had a really, really rough time at work for a while. So I just wasn't doing anything creative or pretty much anything outside of work in general. And so then once I went to Slammer, I was like, right, I'm going to treat this as a challenge. I'm going to try and go back regularly. And did, and then got into the finals, and then got into Team Slammer, which is brilliant. So, but I think ever since then, I've been like I find the competitive structure around poetry quite difficult. Really, I find like it's great to do, and I don't regret doing it at all. And obviously, it's led to these great opportunities, but it can be rough, like. When you sort of, if you're sort of reading out something that's either quite personal or vulnerable, and then it's getting a score put next to it, good or bad. It's just, yeah, I didn't realize how sensitive I was to that. So I don't know if I'd want to go back to a slam or like a competitive poetry environment. I kind of like the open mic environment a bit more. Obviously, things like this are always nice.
As I say to all the guests, this is only the first time. It's not the last time. So as you got things coming up, if you got say you do get that break in the playwright, say you do get that, have these titles or coming up to a final in a competition or whatever, hit me up and say, hey Giles, Rania, I've got this happening. Love to get back. The door's open, right? It's not the first and the last show. This is just the first show. All right.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
It's always there I like to see people do well in where their passion and hearts are, right? Where we can have some meaningful conversations, because, as I said before, you don't know who hears this. There might be that person out there in some corner of the world who's in a dark place, has no one to talk to, and it might be a word that transpires in here that helps them to see the light again and move on, right?
Yeah.
Something in a poem that you recite or anything like that. You never know, right?
Yeah.
And I can say one life out there. I lost my father when I was very young, 12, and
Oh, wow.
I was scared to even let mum in, so I could even only love her through a wall. So I literally grew up finding my own way.
Mm, mm,
And,
yeah.
uh, and I know what that feels like. And if I can help that young boy or girl out there, or that young adult out there who's has no one to turn to,
Mm,
if I can, whether it's a word, something that transpires in our conversation or
yeah.
in a poem, so if that can save that life or put a silver lining on their lives, I'm for it, right? And
Definitely.
so the people that I invite are generally people who write meaningful poetry, not necessarily good poets, but people who got that maturity to life, to its
Mm,
to to society, to the community we live. And I've got no inhibitions. It's an opportunity for the featured guest to showcase their work, and whatever that work
mm,
they want to showcase, whatever they want the world to see of them, it's up to them.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So when you were younger then, did you use writing as a way to kind of be vulnerable or expressive?
funnily, no, I was always in my head, and I was a very extroverted person, and up until my late 20s, I expended that energy outwards. The clubs, Monday stuff, going to watch bands at 11 o'clock in the morning,
Mm,
11 at night. That's how I started my week, getting home at 4, up at 7, off to work. That's how my week started.
mm,
Just always expended outside. And then in my late 20s, I met a person that actually changed my life. It was an intense relationship of about 6 months where it was like two halves of an apple coming together. We never argued, we never had a harsh word, but we knew the rest of the world ceased to exist, so it couldn't go on.
yeah,
And
wow.
ways. And that is what made me go traveling. I traveled around Australia for about 10 years, and while I was in the middle of nowhere, I started, because I had 50 million thoughts in my head, and you're jumping from one to the other. I grabbed a pen and paper and started writing just to focus my thoughts off what was important, and that's how I started my writing. I was in the middle of Alice Springs somewhere, in
Wow.
nowhere, no people, and started writing, and yeah, that was back in '89.
That's wild. It's so crazy, that rush of it when you first come to it and you first sort of start doing it and going, oh, wow, this is like you're creating something.
Yeah.
It's all kind of rushing out of you.
From that point onwards, I started looking within and not expending my
Mm,
hurts and frustrations externally, but started looking within
mm,
and finding
mm.
answers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing.
What's next on the menu of poetry of
What's
Hayley?
next? Well, I'm gonna have to. I was gonna do. I'll sort of try to explain it while I'm trying to get my laptop to work, because this one I probably will need to read off something. My laptop keeps doing weird things, so it's probably good that Instagram didn't work on it, because it might have just collapsed in on itself at some point. But this, I think this is one that I did do at the feature that you saw last year, but it's one that I still feel like is not complete necessarily. It's one I've tried to write in a few different ways, many times, which is sort of about. I might not even be able to get it up though, to be honest. It actually started again years ago, when I read this book recommended to me by a friend called Dark Heart, which is by a journalist called Nick Davies. He's a British journalist, and he actually was one of the journalists leading. He broke like the phone hacking scandal story back in the 2000s, I think. Anyway, but in the early 90s, he spent a couple of years traveling all around Britain or the UK and just speaking with people effectively living in poverty and capturing their stories and kind of putting them into this book. And it was the first time that I'd read something where it was just their voices and just their experience and their stories. And he provides a lot of social commentary and analysis around it, but it made me realize how much with those stories, and it's not just people living in poverty. This was sort of his focus, and then the kind of different ways that manifests, either mental health issues or drug and alcohol addiction or kids in out of home care or something. But any kind of more marginalized group or a group without power. We don't hear their stories through their voice a lot of the time. There's usually someone speaking for them or on behalf of them, whether it's sort of the media or politicians or that was certainly my experience of it, that I had been hearing these stories largely in a kind of public discourse and media narrative. So whether they're being kind of vilified or victimized or something like that. And it was riveting, and it was really, really kind of eye-opening, and just made me think a lot about that, and just the idea that the people who have power are the people who decide the direction of the narrative. But that's sort of where it all started, and I wrote this poem about kind of poverty in the way, because another element of the book that he talks about is how it's kind of this world hidden in plain sight that we manage to kind of obscure the truth of these experiences by kind of focusing on other things, or just pushing them to one side. And so then I've done this revised version, which was more of the poem, which is kind of looking at the it was written last year, so it's sort of 2024, but this, here in Australia, and I imagined lots of places around the world, the big focus is the cost of living crisis and how much this affects everyone. It is, and it's tough for everyone in different ways, I imagine. But there's an interesting way that we kind of we're like, the cost of living crisis here is a very bad thing publicly. This is how we're talking about it, I would say, in the media. It's a very bad thing that no one should be experiencing, but poverty is someone else's problem, And anyway, so that's sort of a big preamble, because I have managed to get the poem. So it still doesn't feel complete, but this is the current version of it. The cost of living crisis is getting to me. Not because I'm completely without money, certainly not because I'm exceedingly wealthy, more because this branding for 2024 is putting a price on my existence and everyone else's, and it's not very comforting. It's not comforting that money talks and people listen, that while we all indulge a tragedy, we act most quickly if it involves money, trying desperately to make the numbers stack up just right. But I wonder, what does it really mean to live in poverty? Mentally, emotionally, tell me, what is that cost of living? Because something's not adding up. We have mothers sleeping in cars with their kids across the road from a private school. We have homeless people lining the streets of the CBD, corporate workers rushing past them to get to their 9:30 meeting, children going hungry in a first world country. Is the disparity hitting yet? Because I could go on, but really, I want to check. Have you seen this poverty? Or when you heard that story, was the person a person or a statistic? How much do we obscure from view by focusing on the dollar figure, a person's humanity being trumped by currency? I feel like this is a world hidden in plain sight, one we hide from view to make sure we don't see what doesn't fit in our worldview, with a view to seeing what's acceptable or accepted. So the stories of the people living at the greatest cost become a cautionary tale or a statistic. I don't know if we do it on purpose, but everything has purpose, and every person we drown out in dollars and cents is a drop in the ocean of the consequences of living without hope, the consequences of living without money, the consequences of living without being seen. And beyond that, the question persists: how does poverty exist in a land so rich? Countless people slipping beneath the surface of a sea of income disparity, job automation, social housing crisis, drug and alcohol addiction, the out-of-home care system. So we simply lose them at sea to the tide of cost of living, to welfare cuts and cuts to everything that doesn't mean votes. I've not been on this earth all too long. I've not lived through a major war, but I feel like I've witnessed the death of morality, and the crowning achievement of the 21st century will be how we learn to live with inequality. Though really, we've been doing it for years, haven't we? Learnt to thrive while others bleed. We've learnt not to care about refugees. We've learnt not to consider the feelings nor circumstances of job seeker dependees. We've managed to condense all First Peoples experiences into statistics and numeracy. We turn our heads when homeless people build fortresses in the streets, making sure we can't see. Just watch the news story on the ABC, if not the woke lefties. So really, let's come clean. Because these people, real people, they could be here, there, anywhere, but it's apparently not next to you or me. A slow and measured removal over the years of their bodies from our sight, of their identities from our consciousness, placed instead into a percentage to tackle with the next policy package, their voices silenced with the label victim and put into the welfare box to sort when we have the time and want to spend the money. So now you don't even have to turn your head. Instead, their ghostly presence has enabled the worst of us to suggest that they're probably just not trying hard enough. Or we should reward aspiration, not destitution. You know, I'm not sure when it was we collectively decided that it was more important to push others further up the ladder than it was to help someone up who fell on the floor. Because it seems to me, no one tells you the cost of living in poverty is hope, is a voice, is visibility, which really seems a heavier price to pay.
That is a very real piece. Yes, things have got bad, but here in Australia, where compared to the global stage, we're in a much better place. You know, US even started the year, and the amount of people that are on the streets, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
22 of us there. There was a lot of people on the streets there. I walk down Elizabeth Street at 10 a.m. when I go into a client's office, for example, and I see Elizabeth Street of all these young people just rolled up there in doorways asleep.
Yeah.
It has been bad, but things have gone up. But what does that really mean to the average person? We cut off a luxury, cut off that treat. But we still got food in here. Most of us still got food in here somewhere. Yes, it might be a tight pinch to pay that mortgage or the rent. It's sometimes that extra $100 to fill the car up just to go for a drive down to Geelong or for that round of golf in a peninsula course or whatever it is. Yeah, okay, I'm a bit short this week or this month, so I'll give it a miss. But it's always there next month, right?
Yeah.
But we still got a bed to sleep on, heater or air conditioner when it's with the extreme weather. And so I myself, since the late 80s, I've been sponsoring like children from developing countries through things like World Vision or something. I'm up about my 10th child or something like that now. And that's just one of the many other charities do support and because I found even when I was traveling 10 years on the road, there were times where I didn't know where my next meal was coming from, right?
Yeah.
But it came in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, this meal came, right?
Yeah. I think that like something that the book really touched on that I hadn't appreciated either, and what I find interesting with the whole kind of living in poverty and cost of living crisis is tapping into the psychology behind it, because it's because when I lived in London, I didn't live in poverty, but I was earning kind of less than minimum wage, and their minimum wage over there is not great, and just could not, I had very, very little money to live off, and I was fine, like I made it work, but I think people don't necessarily, like, there's a real stress and emotional toll that it takes on you when you're stressed about money, because we all need it to live, unfortunately. And the book kind of really makes space for that, because I think, again, we fall into this thing of like, right, well, they all want handouts, or it's too hard a problem to solve, or like, you can't just throw money at the situation, or people aren't going to use it wisely, or this, that, and the other. And it's like, that's because there's a big psychological struggle that's happening there, and that isn't an easy thing to fix. And it's not, you can't just throw money at it necessarily, but there's a certain amount of empathy that we could extend to kind of appreciating the toll that takes, because it can take you to a really dark place. You feel like just quite literally devalued in society. And yeah, it's they're two different things, and I get that you kind of have to address them in different ways. But the stress that someone might be feeling from the cost of living crisis, I don't want to say it like it doesn't exist, but if you're feeling that stress from a cost of living crisis, that stress is similar to the stress that someone who's living in poverty might be feeling. It's just that, like, there is a relatability there that we're kind of not realizing that could translate into empathy. And
Well, for so many around the world who are living in their poverty, there is no light in sight, right? They pretty much see them trapped in that. And you're right, you can't always throw money at things either, like as I said, whenever I go into client offices in town or something like that, and somebody comes in, can I have $5 for breakfast or something? I'd take him in the cafe and I say, order whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
I don't give you the $5 because, number one, I don't carry cash most of my card. But secondly, that $5 could be on a packet of smokes, a drink, or whatever, down the casino or whatever, right? Whereas take him in the cafe, order whatever you want, pay for it. I only sometimes get 200 yards down Elizabeth Street, and I'm back in a cafe buying somebody else something. Right? Because you can't always throw the money at it, but you can feed somebody. And look, I've felt the economic pinch too. I mean, my interest rates, and I go out and pay more for petrol than I did before pre-COVID and so forth. I go to a cafe, I'm spending more, but I can still afford to buy somebody a meal. Right?
Yeah.
Means I don't. Okay, I'll catch that. I'll just go and play golf at my local club where I'm a member, then go to a peninsula course and pay $150 for the round, right? Minor sacrifices, but to me it's just a luxury, whereas somebody else, it's food in their stomach.
Yeah. I try to do the same as well, like, kind of if I am approached by someone living rough, or if someone's got their hat out to collect money and stuff, because it's sort of just I'm not a someone who's living large, exactly. And my rent's getting put up, I've just found out, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but at the same time, I'm like you, I don't have dependents. I'm sort of in a pretty fortunate position in a lot of ways. So if you can help out, why not?
That piece really does capture. This is what I like. I like poetry that has realism, that has meaning. I'm not about rhyming words and this rhyme and so forth. Right? I will not sacrifice a word for rhyme if it deviated from the emotion or the message that I wanted to convey. And I love that in your work, because you really speak. It's like having a conversation, right? It's a very real, down-to-earth, tangible words that you put into your piece, in the message that comes across.
Yeah,
Right.
Thank you. I do.
That bad date to something like, it's very real, right? And that's what I really connected with your work when I heard you perform at Melbourne Morphines, so.
Yeah, thank you. I do feel like I have to warn people sometimes if I'm going to a poetry thing that it's not, because I don't feel like I write proper poetry. It's kind of just almost like having a conversation, or it's me just wanting to get something off my chest. But yeah.
But there is no right poetry, right? Poetry is one of those things where you're excused from grammatical corrections, from structure, from anything, unless you want to go Shakespearean sonnets or Italian sonnets or
Mm,
haiku, whatever. I actually don't write a lot in structured form intentionally
mm,
because, as I said, I'm not going to limit myself to 14 lines of a sonnet if I only need 13 lines, if I need 15 or 20 lines to get my message across. I'm not going to clip it at 14 lines. I'm not going to go the rhyme scheme and deviate from words that deviate from the emotion. So I intentionally don't write
yeah.
structured poetry, and there is no right or wrong in
Mm,
you know. Freestyle is freestyle, and exactly that. Even grammars, you don't even have to worry about
yeah.
punctuation marks. I've got a bit OCD, so I worry about punctuation marks, but you don't have to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think, and I love that, like, kind of coming back to the theatre thing, like, I love that about theatre and playwriting is that there's kind of rules, but also just not, you know, I think one of my favorite teachers kind of said, you know, it's good to know the rules so you understand how you can break them and stuff or bend them or, you know, like it's worth understanding how story works. It's worth kind of working to a formula here and there and then also just breaking out of it or see it so you can kind of notice what it's doing when you break the structure or you um, change the audience's expectations or don't meet them, you know. But I did this challenge once. I think it was, oh, what was it called? It was 28 plays later or something, and it was in February, and it was writing a short play every day for the month of February, and they would give you a sort of something to write about each day, and you didn't have to follow it if you didn't want to, but it was kind of handy, really, to sort of be given that direction from someone just rather than just trying to think of something to write every day. And it was tough. Like it was a great challenge, but it was also really it was just really fun. They gave, you know, one day it was sort of write a surrealist play, just make it really surreal. Another one was like a musical, and there was just all these different kinds of things. So sometimes trying to like stick within a format just to, because it didn't, you know, it wasn't anything that was necessarily going to go anywhere. It was just the challenge of it. So it can be fun to try and fit yourself within a structure or follow a particular format just to see what comes out of it. But yeah, that was great fun.
Now, I used to run this show for about as long as it took, but what I found was Instagram, after they up their resolution, anything above hour and 45 minutes, it stops recording in the archive. So then when you download, you got to get, for the YouTube and all that, you got to go and I got to get a screen recording and screws it up. So I've been trying to cap it at about hour 45 or so. That way I've got the full length in one piece. I don't need
Yeah.
to do any the more for the YouTubes and
Mm,
videos and so forth.
mm.
So we've got about 20 to 25 minutes left before we hit that mark. So happy for you to just go a couple of rapid fire pieces in different genres or whatever, or anything you want to showcase, anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, actually, I thought I could um, read a little section from a play,
Yeah.
which is actually I wrote it first as a short story, and then ended up adapting it into a sort of one woman show, which I didn't perform, but a friend of mine performed in London, and then I managed to get it on once here at the start of 2020. Um, and um, it's so, oh gosh, how do I describe it? It's called Untouchables, and it's basically a woman called Nadine who she's from the start of the play or from the start of the story, whichever one. She's in a strip club because she doesn't work there, but she's very drawn to a particular stripper there called Kylie. And then just over the story, you kind of learn more about Nadine and why she's drawn there, and what she's been through. And she's a chef, and she's a mother. She's got a little girl, Peggy, at home, and she starts to sort of put the pieces together of what's happened to her. But I guess like the chef thing is more relevant, like, because in the short story, and then I managed to pull a lot of it into the play without being hopefully too descriptive, but there's a lot of like imagery around food and bodies and cooking, and then this kind of both sensuality and violence around things, which becomes a bit clearer why it's there. But I thought I'd read this. Oh gosh, if my laptop lets me. It's section sort of more towards the start, and I will just say for anyone that there is a reference to sexual violence, just as a trigger warning, if anyone wants to sort of step away for maybe 3 or 4 minutes. It doesn't go into any detail, but it is discussed towards the end of this section, just so you know. So this is a section from Untouchables, and this is when she's watching Kylie, the stripper. She's just so bare. I can't look away. I guess that's the point. She has this shoulder-length black hair with bright red hair extensions that let it hang down to her waist. Sounds tacky, right? Not on her. Not Kylie. Fucking unicorn of the stripping world. And she walks around in these 8-inch stilettos, just completely graceful, tall and elegant. And her breasts surely must be fake, just bursting out of this glittering 2-piece thing. And her pale skin just curves into a small waist with her hips spilling out underneath. The first time, I just couldn't understand how mesmerized I was. All mystery of her flesh was lost in minutes, but her cold, dark eyes kept something secret. I wanted it. The men stare. I stare. And I do really, I wonder what I'd do if I saw them touch her, move to her even. One night last week, I ordered nachos, which came with a spoon for the guacamole, and I imagined using it to drill into the eyes of every man in the room, scooping out the gelatinous grey matter. At work, cutting onions, I imagine I'm making incisions into their chests and quietly cutting out their organs, severing their hands and stuffing them into their mouths. But Kylie shines. She's hard, like steel, like it might hurt to touch her. But she dances. Fuck, when she dances, this silky smooth movement just rolls like waves at sea between her hips, to, fro, side to side. And her arms drift up, removing the minimal clothing, and this shining body just dares you to stare. Don't misunderstand. This isn't jealousy. I mean, I am a mother and a chef. I have a muffin top, and one thigh will casually brush the other when I walk. It doesn't bother me. I have learned to take pride in my appearance again, but I have no real desire in being attractive to others. My family was shocked when I decided to keep Peggy. Not in any political way. I think they just naturally assumed I'd have an abortion due to the circumstances in which, well, it's all in the context, isn't it? Fuck, I wish Danielle would stop texting. It does kind of spoil the mood. Not that I don't want you to think everyone sees these things differently, I guess. When I found out I was pregnant, I went to this therapy group of other rape survivors. The doctor recommended some generic thing, but the paramedic had mentioned it was really beneficial, in the way she was saying it had been beneficial for her. So most of them spoke of violent partners or people they'd known all their lives that had turned one day like milk. I guess I hadn't known what a rarity I was, a victim of a faceless predator, catching me between buses one night after work while my car was being serviced. It was never meant to take that long, but then the mechanic mentioned the brake lights, and so I decided to replace them. And, they've been dimming for months. And, it wasn't my first night on public transport either. I'd been doing the commute for a week and a half. I can't even remember what I'd been wearing that night. I will never erase exactly what happened and how, but trying to recall the motivator, the implicit suggestion in my behavior was impossible. One woman in the group said it was common to blame yourself. If only I could blame myself. That would mean I made a choice.
So just to get it right, that was an excerpt from a short story you were writing, correct?
It's a short story that I have written, and then I adapted it into a one-woman show.
Right, okay.
So it's sort of a theatre show.
Yeah, right.
Play.
Because I was, when you were speaking in terms of the thoughts going through your head, I was thinking, how do you get that into a three-dimensional play? But right, okay, so from the story, it was pretty gripping. I'd love to read the whole story. That was I identify with a lot of that, right? I don't, does not appeal to me, never has. The clubs, that sort of thing, because I see everybody as somebody's son, somebody's daughter. And what I'd want for my son, anybody else would want for their son or daughter. And I don't, at the expense of somebody having to denigrate themselves for my entertainment, that's never appealed to me. Never had.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I get that it's, it's something that's seen differently by a lot of people, and a lot of women love doing it or find it empowering. So it's one of those. I didn't write the story to try and really comment on that experience or anything. It was just it was more about the protagonist, Nadine, and her experience. But I do find it an interesting world to look at.
And anybody, whatever you got to do for a job, they deserve to be safe, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like that young stand-up comedian must be going back about back, who got killed, finished the stand-up gig, and she was walking across Princess Park there when she got raped.
Yeah, it was.
I actually worked with her brother for quite a few years.
Yeah.
It was pretty sad.
Awful.
Doing your job, you got to be free to go home, right?
Yeah.
And when you go home, you got to be free to, you got to feel safe there. So, yeah. Well, Hayley, that's really great, because your poetry show that you've recited so far, shown the humorous side to very everyday realistic, to real issues within our society. And yeah, you're certainly a talented lady like you. I'd love to see some of your thank you for sharing even that excerpt from that sort of story / playwright. You got the talent, and I do hope that you do get that break back pre-COVID that you had, that COVID sort of shattered, and keep believing in it. And I believe it'll happen. It will.
Yeah.
And something to be, it's meant to be, right?
Yeah. And it's, there's kind of just got to keep plugging away at it, I guess, or just find the spaces to make it work. But yeah, I'm really hoping to.
I think it'll happen. Yeah. I think it'll happen. Anything else you want to share, or anything you want to share that you got upcoming that you'd like to highlight to people? Or?
I don't know if I have anything upcoming, sadly, to really share. That piece that the Untouchables, because I was rereading it to sort of see if there was a section that I could read out here and everything, and it made me, interested in trying to put that on again, not with me, performing it. But yeah, so I might be trying to look into that, but that's, yeah, not sure. But Team Slammer hopefully will have something coming up in the next couple of months, but again, that's all dependent on us getting together and getting shit done.
Yeah.
Which we are trying to do.
Do let me know if there's any team event that I'd love to come and be in the audience, and if it does start up, the monthly gig starts up again, I definitely will try and come and be in the audience there.
Yeah. Oh, you could even compete.
I don't write for competitions, and I write for getting a message across through my life experiences. But yeah, love to come and just listen there. It'll be good.
Yeah, totally.
Now we've got about 12 minutes, so closing piece that you want to share. While you're thinking what that is, I'd like to thank everybody who's been in and out of the room. As I always say, your comments and so forth and your support in the room really helps a featured guest to really give off themselves. Otherwise it's like talking to a blank wall, right? It's very hard. You think so your comments and your encouragement there and being in the room really does help the conversations, really does help the featured guests to show off themselves. So thank you very much for that, for being in that room, and your support is always most welcome. Hi Onyx, I've got a friend of mine from Austin, Texas way, joined there as well, who has been featured on the show. There's been people from all over the world coming here.
Yeah.
And support this. It's really good.
Yeah, no, it's been super fun doing this, and thank you to everyone who's watched and chimed in, and people from Melbourne poetry community. It's very, very kind of you to.
Another lass that I know from the States. She's just message saying this has been a treat. Thanks for having her. There you go. So it's as I said, what I do like with this platform is it can reach any corner of the world. I get people in the subcontinent, in India or Nepal or wherever, watching this and responding, the UK and all that.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I can I'm running low on battery, but that's all right because we'll be wrapping up soon. But I can do one, which I guess would be a bit more, I mean, certainly coming from that little excerpt will be a bit more lighthearted to end on, which I think I did at the feature last year. But this is one that I wrote not super recently, more, but it's I might have alluded to earlier. I'm single, and I've been single for most of my adult life, and sort of touching on the kind of dating scene in general and the way, but I think for me it's more about the way we connect or try to connect or fail to connect nowadays, which has been an interesting feature of my life. But this poem is called Rowboat. I am single. I am solo. I am a numero uno, and I don't care. I do care. I shouldn't care. I always care. I'm not clear on whether we're collectively saying it's good or bad to care, but I'll keep putting myself out there. Look, I don't think this whole thing is a binary of married or spinster in a happy relationship or happily single together or apart. I just think that we're forgetting how to connect, or maybe that's just me. To paint a picture, you go on the apps to make an effort because where else to go? Because why not? And nearly immediately regret it and swear off the apps. You go out to a bar thinking you might meet someone the old-fashioned way, and you talk to a person who makes you feel like shit, and you go, cool, never mind, I'm not going to meet someone at a bar. You get back on the apps and you match with a person who seems fine. You meet and they ghost you, and you go, cool, never mind, I'm not going to meet someone off an app. You're pursued by someone you didn't expect and you're 100% not attracted to them, and you go, cool, not my person, at least I know something's out there. It wasn't going to happen this way, whatever way. Anyway, you listen to a podcast that tells you to get off the apps, and you talk to a friend who met their partner at uni and says it should be organic. So you go to the supermarket and you look for the section that sells organic connections. You attempt to flirt with someone at work and have no idea if you're creating an office romance or a case for sexual harassment. You have casual sex and you feel very little, so you don't have casual sex and you still feel very little. You have conversations with friends that are littered with throwaway phrases, ensuring one is always easy to indeed throw away. Yeah, look, they're just not worth it. I don't think they're right for you. What do you expect from an app? You're probably not going to meet someone that way. You know, you don't owe them anything. They actually don't owe you anything. Let's make sure we never get close enough to owe anyone anything. You idealize incidental people in your everyday life like a butcher or barista and imagine them asking you out, not because it's something you really want, but it's a nice fantasy to hold on to and it feels better than being alone. But you look after yourself, you try to be kind to yourself, you do it on your own, you embrace your independence, you're actually fine with it most of the time, but you're also alone, and you know that humans seek or even crave connection, and despite any evidence to the contrary, you remain human. And you connect with friends and you connect with family every now and then, you connect with a neighbor or a stranger, practice small acts of kindness and remain alone and maybe need a little more and feel so bad about it, feel so very inadequate for it or pathetic or weak, like you've swallowed a fairy tale you knew wasn't real. Because even though rom-coms told us we can't be an island, I find in the sea of modern dating it's more like being in a rowboat, and you have to be very much fine and okay alone in your rowboat, but always moving, searching, looking, not an island, because there's always plenty more fish in the sea, right? You try not to get lost in being alone, while being encouraged to celebrate your aloneness, while being encouraged to interrogate your aloneness, while appreciating everyone is dealing with their own aloneness, and sometimes your aloneness and someone else's aloneness cross over in a beautiful moment of shared togetherness, and other times they just miss. And maybe one day you do meet someone on an app, at a bar, through a friend, and they seem different, and they are different, and they are right there in front of you telling you it seems different, and it's so forceful and insistent on being something, so you do connect profoundly, you think, and then citing any number of reasons they leave like all the others before them, and you go, cool. And in leaving they leave a scar, and it hurts and then heals like all the others before them. And eventually you mean nothing to each other like you did before. And it's just a bit sad how we can mean nothing to each other so easily. Maybe it's no wonder we're alone.
That is an amazing piece to close off on. It's
sort of thought it's kind of fun at the start, but then it gets a bit rough at the end. But
it's true, it's real,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, true.
And I don't think there would be one adult person who could not relate to that somewhere along in their life.
Yeah.
It affirmed to me my decision, the correct decision, that after 2 marriages and a list of de facto relationships, why the hell I'm happy being single, you know.
Yeah.
I brought up my child and things like that, and now I mean, like as I said, I can hop on a plane and go wherever. If I want to go and a golf now, I can. If I want to go and sleep, I've got nobody to answer to, nobody at all, and it's a hard struggle to give that up now, you know.
Yeah.
I've got nothing against love, and I enjoyed my marriages and my relationships, and I do enjoy actually now more than just being with somebody, having a whole multitude of good close friendships, like male, female, where we can talk, we can have conversations at an emotional level, at a real level, without having to take our clothes off to, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've been blessed by so many friendships like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
both even with males and females, where I can have some very in-depth, profound conversations and just talk about life or talk about things, and that's to me more important now. And your poem sort of told me, oh, yeah, here's all another 50 reasons why what you're doing is right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm glad. I'm glad. I mean, I love my independence, and I think it's obviously a beautiful place to come to if you're happy with yourself or being with yourself or happy with your own company.
Yeah.
And then I think it's also very human to seek out a certain amount of connection. And that, like you said, doesn't have to come in a romantic form necessarily. There's plenty of different ways we can connect with people. Obviously intimate romantic connection is sort of something, it's the whole way we go about it now. If you're single and on the dating apps or whatever, it's a weird
The
space.
the sad thing is how people's own judgments, like even if you got a close friendship and you're seeing out, say with somebody from the opposite sex, whatever, at dinner or whatever, doing something, straight away they say, "Oh, what's happening there?" And there's nothing other than like to me, for me to go to dinner with you is no different to having dinner with Antonio or Yaru or something like that, right? And having a chat, because I can have in-depth conversations with them as well as I could with you or somebody like Toriro or whatever.
Yeah.
Me, doesn't there's anything in it, but you do that too often and people think, "Oh, what's going on there?" That's
Yeah.
what I find, um,
It's tricky, really.
yeah, it's because honestly, like often I've share more in-depth sort of conversations and emotional connections with friends in a friendship than a lot of people do within marriages.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm really blessed, and I'm not. I can uh, be with, have many close friendships with many, as opposed to if I'm with one
Mm.
person, and then I'm committed to that, because then it's frowned upon if I had a close connection with somebody else, purely platonic, like
Yeah. Yeah.
that is frowned upon, right? Or is read wrong, or look at him, what's it, that sort of
Yeah.
shit.
I guess it depends on the person and how, like, obviously people are finding so many different ways nowadays to be in intimate relationships
Yeah,
and all of that. But also at the end of the day, it's always so funny how we try to create rules and structure around things that are just
yeah.
humans human and being, real flawed, messy, emotional creatures. So it's always going to get messy at some point. But
I'm just laughing at Antonia's comment. They're always down for you to buy me a meal. Yeah. No, Hayley, sincere thanks for agreeing to come on the show. It has been a treat.
thank you for having me.
When as I said before, this is only the first time, it's not the last time, right? So stay in touch. And when I post this, I will add you as a collaborator. And over the week, when I create the YouTube and the podcast, I will send you those links as well. You can feel free to use them as any which way you like it. And I do hope that I'm glad you could read even excerpt from your
Mm.
playwrights, even, because I'd really like somebody to see that, and I want to see that playwright, where her heart belongs. Where
Yeah,
she,
yeah.
now I've got Yaru going, "Don't buy Tony a meal," so now the boys have got the. Hey, thanks guys for all coming on and supporting the show, supporting Hayley on this feature. Yaru, Antonio, Rai, thank you, Angela, Sam. Angela actually comes along with me. She lives close to me, about 20 minutes away. We've known each other on Instagram about 3 years,
Wow.
but we only recently connected, and now she's starting to come to a lot of live gigs. I've got to bring her to one of the Wibe Union ones as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. For
yeah.
sure. Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me and for the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun, and thank you for everyone who tuned in
It
and
is.
commented.
It
I really appreciate it.
to have everyone. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And there's, as I said, connections that I know from the States and all that, really enjoyed your work and complimenting me on bringing you on and on the, so this is how we build communities, right? One for all and all for one. And yeah,
I love it. I love it.
people I know introduced to somebody in the other end, and people on the other end introduced. Yeah, that's how the community grows. And there's we're blessed to be this community here on Instagram in poetry. There's some brilliant people. So, and within our in-person events. So, yeah. Hayley, I wish you all the best. All the best for 2025. I really wish you all the best in the creative space as well, whatever that is, whether it's a spoken word, whether it's a slam competitions, whether it's a theatre, all of the above. Wish you all the best, and as I said, stay in touch and let's make this happen again.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much.
Heartfelt thanks, and thank you to everybody who's been in and out of the room. Appreciate
Yeah.
it and value your support each week, each fortnight. Stay safe, stay blessed, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.